Now, Micron Technology delivered record quarterly revenue, supporting a bullish outlook yesterday. Let's break down these earnings for Micron. To join me to help do that, Matthew Bryson, our Senior Vice President, Equity Research at Wedbush Security, also one of those bulls. Now, tell us, what stood out for you most from Micron's earnings?
So I think the most important piece of data they gave us is that their high bandwidth memory, the memory that is tied to NVIDIA GPUs on the data center, that grew 50% quarter over quarter. It's now gotten large enough as a segment that it's driving a lot of revenue growth. It's very high margin. It's very high price. And so the growth of that segment, or the lack thereof, is probably the most important metric for Micron.
And do you see its revenue continuing to grow in future quarters?
Yeah, so there really are only three players in the DRAM market these days: Micron, Samsung, and Hynix. Hynix has led in this market. Samsung seems to be struggling, and so Micron appears to be executing. And as long as they execute, there needs to be more than one supplier, and so there's a ton of opportunity for them to grow.
And as far as their guidance, what stood out to you most there?
With the guidance, it was really the higher revenue run rate, higher gross margin, higher EPS. But a lot of that wasn't that the environment is getting better at a faster rate. Rather, they just were working off a higher base. Pricing in the May quarter was just better than they anticipated back when they gave us guidance. And in memory, when you're starting off a higher base, it all flows through into the subsequent quarters until conditions change.
And I see you have a $165 price target that you raised from $150 and kept your outperform rating for them. What did you see specifically that led to that? That your confidence obviously came before the earnings, but your boosted confidence. What's driving that most?
Yeah, so what we're looking for heading into earnings is, again, really for that high bandwidth memory segment to grow. We'd expected 50%. They deliver 50%. So exactly in line with our expectations. But because pricing went up in other markets, and again, because that baseline is what your subsequent quarters work off of, our out year earnings just went up. And so our price target, we're using the same multiple. It really just reflects the fact that our EPS numbers for the out year now are just higher, and they should get credit for that.
And how focused were you on their gross margin number? And specifically, I'm looking at what they set their expectations for the current quarter at 42% plus or minus 1%. Was that in line for you?
No, that was better. And again, that was better on pricing. So pricing for away from HBM, the commodity products, particularly DRAM, was just better than they anticipated heading in the quarter. My view is that as we go through this year, there's been a pickup in cloud and enterprise demand over the last couple months that's driving increased DRAM and NAND requirements. And that's creating a better pricing outlook that manifested to some extent in calendar Q2, but I think it also continues into Q3, Q4.
And what were some of your other key takeaways from the earnings?
So from a DRAM perspective, look, there's been a ton of positive data points on AI. Micron growing HBM, so the memory that supports AI by 50%. Q on Q, that certainly fits with all of that strength. Obviously NVIDIA is the leader there, but you can look at a number of other players who sell into that space. On the controller side, so Silicon Motion makes the storage controllers that pair particularly with Micron's products going in the handset market. That handset market was really strong for Micron. If I remember correctly, bits were up like 40%. So that should drive demand for more Silicon Motion controllers. And then, lastly, again, when memory is good, it tends to be good for everyone. So when you're looking at Samsung Hynix in particular has done really well in that HBM space, is executing really well across memory. And so Micron doing well, I view as a positive indicator for Hynix.
Well, Matthew, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. We really appreciate it. That's Matthew Bryson, the Senior Vice President, Equity Research for Wedbush Securities.